Right. All right, Tony. Yeah. Tony? Yeah. Tony. Yeah. 1 second, 1 second. Tony. Ash! Wait, what? I'm leaving. Yeah, fine. Get a divorce lawyer. See if I care. No, as in, I'm going on holiday, and I'm leaving you in charge. Oh. So, I've uploaded this week's video. Just do the title, text, thumbnail, all that crap. I can't believe I just wasted 40 million hours on a goddamn demon. Well, it was closer to 40 hours, but... Yeah, sure. Yeah, 40 hours. Just don't exaggerate it. It's fine. Yeah, sure. Okay? Cool. Okay, I'll see you in a few weeks. Come on, Heck. Son of a bitch! Alrighty, so we are coming in hard with yet another Gundam video. It's been over a year since we did our Master Grade Extreme diorama, so I think it is time for another one. And yes, this one is going to serve as my entry into the Gundam Builders World Cup. And indeed, we're going to use this Yokohama factory exclusive RX-78 2 bust to do it. First thing is first, we got to prime the runners because we're going to paint this thing with the closest approximation of the color you can. But, you know, red is red, yellow is yellow. You guys know how I feel about these things. Onto the build. Now, as it stands, I need to put this thing together in a state where I can easily, make it come apart later in the project. So I'm doing a general cleanup where is necessary and loosely push fitting all the major parts together. I need him to have his silhouette intact so I can build the hangar bay diorama around him, but when the time comes, I need to be able to disassemble and paint him and then rebuild him with the wiring intact and an LED lighting rig inside him. It's a bit of a faff to do it this way, but it's the most reliable way to do things in case I need to change direction midway through the project. As a temp build for the diorama, we're going to have some super fun Lego time. Yeah, Lego time. To build up the basic blueprint of where everything is going to go, where lights are going to sit, and how everything will be composed. Think of it like a temporary scaffold on a stage that will house lights and rigging for a tech rehearsal in a theatre. Then the actual set can be built around it. Okay, next thing to do is to design the lighting rig itself, both creatively and practically. I know bits and bobs about lighting and electronics in dioramas, but with this being a little bit more involved and needing some cool gimmicks, I've recruited the help of David Roche from TerrainTronics, a specialist in electronics for D&D, dioramas and miniatures. And he's come over to give me more than a bit of a hand. David designs, manufactures, and sells his own proprietary tech for dioramas, so I'm basically just going to hand over to him at this point.
Build is going to take more than 4 lights, right? We're already assuming that. Now, the colony castle boards have 4 outputs each. So ideally, we're going to use 2 of them to have up to 8 LEDs. We can add more later if we want, but just doing this prototyping stage while we're wiring things up. I'm actually going to use the USB input on one of them for power, and then we're going to cheat and take power. We're going to get a wire, solder it in so that it goes plus to plus, minus to minus, so that both boards are then powered. A lot of folks ask, they think this is one board. You can actually snap these apart to get 2. So red for positive, black for negative. Just a convention. There's no difference in the wire. It's all hopefully copper. So you can see there I've connected the negative on this side to the negative on this side. So what's going to happen is power is going to come in here, and the negative or the ground, whatever you want to call it, comes to this point, and we're just copy and pasting it over to here. And then we'll do the same with red wire from this other side of where the resistor normally sits over. All of this is on the GitHub. It's all documented. When you buy these boards, please read the documentation, because I spend time writing it.
However, Daffith knows with my MS shaky hands I am not the most confident with a soldering iron in hand, so he's taking the time to temp fit all of this with something called a wire wrap tool.
Okay, and then slide onto the pin. A little bit of tension. See, yeah, it slipped off now. Bugger. But yeah, you need a little bit of tension, because what you're actually doing with wire wrapping is the pin itself is square. You're actually making it bite into the wire. So you got to keep a little bit of tension on there.
The idea behind this session is to build a prototype of the entire rig, so that later, when everything is built, I can transfer it all across and rebuild it myself to exactly fit the diorama.
And weld. Okay, so any small LEDs, we're going to use a Carnarvon castle board. Now, I name all my products after Welsh castles because it's...
Just say it one more time.
Carnarvon.
Oof.
Carnarvon. You got to roll the R as well. 600 castles in Wales. That's enough projects to last me until, I'm no longer needed. And so, yeah, this board has some special abilities on it. One, it can drive 3 LEDs, like little LEDs directly, and I can do things like control brightness and so on. You could even control like an RGB LED with this and change the color of the lighting and so on. It's got 3 outputs, which can normally be used to control motors to make things move. But in this case, I'm going to use them to switch on other boards which are going to be driving power. But the real reason we're using this is this little guy here. And this little guy is an infrared receiver so that we can use a remote control. So these are basically a big power switch. It takes a small power signal and it switches whatever big signal you've got on. There's 10 of them on this strip. So I'm going to break off 2 of them, break off one of them, 10mm by 10mm, and we're just gonna connect that to the Carnarvon Castle. So Carnarvon Castle signal comes out into this, it switches the big 5-volt USB power into our connoys, and now we've got remotely controlled connoys.
So in short, we're using the Carnarvon Castle board as a power and control module, and then using the remote control, we can then turn on 2 of the other boards from that main board. But what will require some programming is the welding torch or flashing headlight that we want. This is to represent the mobile suit being charged or jump-started by a generator and cables. And to do this, we need to not only be able to turn the light on and off, but also add an element of randomness to it.
Oh, look at that! All right. Okay. So that's that board. Now let's try and do it on.
We worked into the evening tweaking and designing how we wanted this light to look and behave. And as we will discuss in an upcoming chat show video with Daffith, the feeling of making a little light come on is extremely satisfying. Okay, so with the electronics designed, I now need to transpose this rig and replace the Lego structure with a real one. All the prototyping is done, and now it's time to actually make this diorama. My cat donated his toy crane to the project. We used to put treats in a little basket at the end and move it around for him to chase and play with. But once he realized he could just knock over the whole crane and get his treats that way, the fun kind of went out of it. So thank you for the loan of your crane member. It's worth noting at this point that I don't do architecture very well. Nature, organic stuff, ruins, rubble, destroyed, broken things that I do pretty well. But when it comes to clean joins, angles, and making stuff fit, I struggle. Most of this is down to impatience, ADHD, and just not measuring lengths and angles properly. However, this diorama is for a competition and is going to be scrutinized on the quality of build and finish. So I'm taking a lot of extra time to make sure things fit, line up, the joins are hidden, and if they're not hidden, actively make a creative change in the brief to make them hidden. And on the off chance that I do win and have to take this thing to Japan, it needs to be able to survive the overseas journey, so it needs to be tidy and it needs to be indestructible. Another note on design philosophy is that it needs detail. Detail, trim, clutter, and motivated detail especially. Okay, so before I can start painting and putting the final panels on this guy, I need to add the wiring for the light rig in the back. For now, this is just a case of routing a series of wires through the diorama, clean access points to where the lights are going to connect, routed through to the back of the diorama where the control boards and power supply are going to sit. With the build wiring in, it's time to clean up the workspace, return all of the materials I've used to where they belong in the workshop, and ready the desk for painting mode. Since our backdrop is going to be concrete, I am dusting all the concrete areas with a lovely grey primer from Poundland. Due to poor quality control, this has variable shades of green and blue in it that nicely tint the grain paint in different hues in different areas. It's a really nice concrete in a can spray paint. It's a simple touch, but the colours of the diorama are based around the colours of the Gundam that sits in the centre of it. Worn-in areas and trim are in yellow, cables will be red and blue, and equipment lying around will either be in yellow, blue and red, or completely desaturated with kind of industrial-friendly colours. Note to self, never to use this colour forge yellow again, as every time I use it, it just kind of bleeds and pisses everywhere. I don't know if the can is overfilled or what, but it feels odd when I shake it and it sprays like dog shit. But we can cover all that up by roughing up the concrete on the back wall with muddy colours, grey colours, flecks of blue and brown with a sponge. I was kindly sent these weathering pencils from Whaling Games and manufactured by AK Interactive, and they're pretty good. Some go on dry, others go on after being dipped in water for different effects. But they certainly made adding scratches, chipping and dirt a lot easier. Then finishing everything off with a nice black oil wash and using a makeup sponge dipped in white spirit, we can buff it all back on the flat surfaces to give it a nice varied finish. Okie dokie, contractual obligation time. I was kindly sent this Elegoo Saturn 4 Ultra by, well, Elegoo. If you're not aware, firstly, this is a 3D printer, yeah, no shit. And secondly, this is a successor to the Saturn 3, yeah, no shit. And comes with some new bells and whistles, and as we'll discuss in a little bit, some bellends and whistles as well. And yeah, it comes with a high chair bolt-on thing, because this printer dribbles a lot. Yeah, it's messier than its predecessors, messier and with some internal workings that are kind of exposed to the mess, unless we slap this bib on it. Yeah, as Fohammer points out in his review, the Saturn 4 Ultra comes with a fucking bib. All the usual spares and tools are included, so if, like some fluke, your vat resin leaks and you need to replace the FEP sheets or the like, you can do that easily enough with everything in the box. Setup is super easy, as we expect from Elegoo at this point, and the build plate has been upgraded to the super simple clamp and go system. Very nice. Okay, main bell and bell end of this printer, the pro and the con if you will. This thing has a tilting vat. So whenever a layer lifts away from the FEP sheet, the vat tilts to around 25-30 degrees to ease the pressure and force on the sheet. This also serves to prevent prints being pulled off the build plate. And it works very well. However, if your FEP sheet gets a hole punctured in it, which did happen to me, your resin then leaks onto the screen and then sloshes around, and the internal workings of the printer are also underneath the cavity where the tank tilts. Which means liquid resin in large enough amounts will absolutely be poured into the brain of the printer every 3 seconds. It's rare and not as cataclysmic as it sounds, but I did have a leak and I did have to strip everything down and clean it. But only once, and it wasn't the end of the world, really. But the results are great. Again, as we expect from consumer grade Elegoo stuff, things print out at 0.2 mil very clean and with very minimal observable layer lines. And due to the size of the vat and the plate, you can get everything you want on there. I printed all of the scatter objects and engineering team on this printer on a single print run, absolutely no problems. Once again, I'm sticking to primary colours that are on the Gundam model at the centre, or using desaturated industrial friendly colours. For the crew, I tried a technique from Night Shift on YouTube, and well, I certainly gave it a shot. The idea was to zenithal with an airbrush and paint absolutely everything with thin layers of glazing. Did it work? Well, I understood the principle, and now I just need to refine it and figure out how it actually works. Another day. Yeah, mid-range results. Gundam painting. Yeah, in all the hubbub, we kind of forgot this thing actually needed to be painted. Fairly nuts and bolts stuff. I'm doing an old scale modeling trick of highlighting and shading individual panels, irrespective of their neighboring panels, to force the illusion of separation and depth. Special attention is being paid to the white panels and replacing some of the whites with light greys, some of them with creams, and some of them with a pure white. Again, all in the name of separation and distinction from one another. With those values on, it's finally time to rebuild him and add some finishing touches. First up, some subtle dirt and deep chips in the paintwork with some cuirass leather from 2 thin coats. Followed up by some water slide decals that I picked up from the On the Earth shop, link down below. And then using our sponge chips as a guide, we take lighter shades of all the base colours and hand paint on additional chips where we want them. Lastly, reintroducing that weathering pencil from AK Interactive, we go pretty hard and crunchy over the most exposed edges of the mobile suit. And yes, there's the complete finished RX-78-2 in its hangar bay, having a little more than a tune-up. I'd like to say this was hard and I'm relieved it's done, but I actually found a nice little flow state with this entire project. The challenge to skill ratio was never really that off, mostly thanks to Decals from TerrainTronics eliminating that specific headache for me. But everything else just kind of flowed nicely. Probably because what I did with this project especially is I took the time to plan out each stage ahead of time, picked my materials, picked my resources, color palette, my accessories, and essentially pre-designed the whole process in my head a couple of dozen times. Which meant when it came to building and making, I could just run in a straight line and tick every box along the way. A very pleasant experience all around. And no, sadly I did not win the UK regional title, nor did I place in the top 3. And that is fine. Do I think it had a good chance? Yeah, sure. Do I think it should have won? Well, I don't really have an opinion on that. I think it's good, but in regards to how it should have placed, I don't really have any say in that, because that's the point of a skill-based competition, is that it's not my choice. With things like this, Gundam Builders World Cup, Golden Demon, Crystal Brush, things like that, your ability can only carry you into a ballpark area. After that, it's basically the lottery. And when you start forcing your own opinion on a competition that you didn't judge, you're basically kind of saying, my lottery numbers are better than other people's numbers. And that's not a detraction from the other entries that won. Again, it's skill and ability that carry you to the top shelf of these things. But everything after that is out of your hands and looked at by people without the sentimentality or the context that you yourself apply to your creations. For me, I've been a working creative for like 17, 18 years, and it was never about a competition. It was always about, the measure of success, whether was whether I could deliver on spec to the brief, quickly, quietly, and to the highest quality possible. And I've basically done that with this, so I'm happy. In my own mind, I've won. Thank you to my Patreon community for their support. It's thanks to you guys that these slightly niche projects can be made without a sponsor backing. And thank you, dear viewer, for watching. I will see you next time when me and Michael Chumpchange are chatting with David Rush from TerrainTronics about miniatures, gaming, and electronics. So we'll see you then.